Okay, welcome to the Beyond Fantasies webinar, moving beyond imprinted sexual and romantic fantasy. So before we get started, I offer sex and relationship guidance to men and women, mainly through 3 or 6 month packages for substantial personal transformation, and individual sessions to deal with real-time issues are also available. And if you have questions during this webinar, please just send them as private messages using the Zoom chat feature. And you have my email address there, john@newlivingparadigms.com. So, why do we do this work? Well, it'd be really nice in relationships to experience ecstasy and avoid heartbreak, to feel seen in and not trapped in relationships, and to be more present in the moment and less caught up in scripts, to have deep, authentic relationships, and to discover more about and remake yourself. And also, as a sort of side effect of personal development, we also help to co-create a better world. So let's just put a little timeline on romance. So we can probably trace the roots of the romantic movement into antiquity, possibly in pagan legends, myth, such as Eros and Cupid. However, romance doesn't really start to become a cultural phenomena until the medieval era. So this is really quite important. Whereas we like to regard romance as a sort of a natural phenomena, something that men and women just do or want to do, in fact, it has a very specific timeline, only going back about 800 years. And it starts as tales about heroic noblemen. And later, it's embellished with stories of rescuing women in peril. And then we have the idea of the heroic knights and whoever the heroes are, winning women's attentions. And it's not actually until the 18th century, really quite recently in historical terms, that we start to see couples using terms of endearment like love and darling. Before that, in the marriages, people tended to call each other Mr. or Master or Sir or whatever, or Mrs. or Madame, and so forth. And then a bit later, in the 19th century, we start to see marriages based on love. And this is largely an upper and middle class culture. And in particular in the 19th century, wealthy women started to want to have more control over their relationships. And there was this movement towards more consent, wanting to have a sentimental attachment to your partner. And for most of history, of course, marriages were organized and they were sort of a family-to-family contract. And essentially, really, the women were just being raped in these relationships. They hadn't consented fully. They were doing it for the right to be supported and have a family, and for financial and for family reasons. And this is the same for men as well. They were arranged situations. So overall, one of the interesting things about the romantic phenomena, again, is this idea that it's sort of natural and it should be spontaneous, and it just sort of evolves as people interact in relationships. And it's not true. It's purely a cultural phenomena with a defined history, and we can look back through the literature and beyond the sort of epoch that I've put there. There's just no recorded history of romantic relationships. So this quite elaborate myth has developed over many centuries, and it leads to these emotional states which are based on a false premise. And that false premise is that it's a natural, or it's supposed to be a sort of spontaneous unfolding of feelings that happen between romantically entangled individuals. And this is also sort of an example of a meme that's spread by peer pressure and by the media. And it provides idealized male and female roles. So it's typically it's a very gender role sort of culture. And it has this narrative of how loving relationships are supposed to be. So there's all these sort of behavioral scripts about what's supposed to happen when you are in love with somebody. And because of these exposures to modelling by the parents and the media occur in our childhood, and of course there's all these sort of fairy tales and princess stories and so on and so forth. These imprint into the developing mind, and this, of course, is what leads people to think they're kind of natural. It's just really early childhood programming. And what happens is, as we live our lives with these imprinted scripts in our brain, certain situations trigger the scripts and lead to certain kinds of expectations and behaviors which really don't come from our authentic self. And finally, the reality can't live up to this impossible ideal. So we're sort of pretending and playing these scripts in our minds, and the behaviors that we produce just aren't actually authentic. They don't really feel like we're doing them ourselves. So they're kind of alienating. And there's more. Romantic delusions are a profitable business, and there's a sort of $1 billion romantic novel book industry just in the US alone. And if you think all the cards that people send each other, and the movies, articles in magazines, and all these other forms of media that propagate the romantic myth. And then, of course, there's all manner of products, the box of chocolates, the red roses, the fine wine evening out with a meal, all sorts of things that are profit-making. And then there's the marriage industry, of course, with the dresses, the expensive arrangements, the jewelry, and again the cards. And of course, when it all falls to pieces, the divorce industry, a huge $1 billion business employing very expensive legal advisors. And interestingly, I think politics reflects, going back to the timeline, the gallantry of the male, the hero, the champion. It's male dominated. It's about rescuing people and helping them, at least superficially. So politicians can play this sort of role of the gallant champion, the hero. And also there's other men playing this sort of role of in the military and the police, the sort of the stoic hero, and also the disposable male. And of course there's quite a lot of destructive outcomes to this sort of role model, and the sort of permissibility or permission that society gives, perhaps based on the romantic legends being implanted and reinforced through the media, and also in relationship expectations. So what exactly is falling in love? Well, it's a form of transient insanity. Of course, there is underlying sexual attraction, which is biological, and there's no escaping this. This is the natural and authentic part of the process, but it's superimposed by this altered state of consciousness. So not only is there the arousal and attraction, but also there's these implanted or imprinted scripts going on. And the sense is of being possessed by wonderful feelings and overwhelming ecstatic passions. And also there's this process of projection that goes on, so that we look for someone to fit the part, which I think is a great expression, because of course there's the scripts, so there's people to speak the scripts and play the parts. And this is an entirely internal emotional process. So it's not really stuff that's going on in the real world. It's all part of the imagination, and it is crazy to try and build relationships on it. So some of the other characteristics of falling in love, it's somewhat like a religious experience. And it speaks to the human experience. It arouses the emotions. And this is sort of pretense that it's natural and not just imaginary. There's a faith in the process. The claims are not testable or factual. And it's unlike religion, it's kind of hard to be objective about romance, because there's not really any competing mems. Obviously in religion there are different religions, and that allows us to retain some kind of objectivity about the situation. So, as Ayn Rand said, you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. So, when romantic delusions collapse, we're left with painful emotions, heartbreak, perhaps a sense of inadequacy, fears about who we're going to find next and how alone we're going to be. And also all kinds of repressed or suppressed feelings can be unleashed. Love can turn to hate, and people can become quite desperate. They can commit suicide, they can divorce, there can be family breakdown, domestic violence, and people get killed as well. So we're going to take a romantic inventory now, and I'm going to read out these 94 statements. And what we're looking for here is whether you identify with the statement. So really this is about the first thing that kind of comes into your head. It's either a yes or no. And as I read the questions out, you could just put the question number down, and then if you identify with the question, you can put a tick after the number or a Y or whatever mark you want to make. And listen carefully, because I'm not going to repeat. So what we'll get from this process is a pretty clear picture of where you're at on the romantic infatuation sort of position, how entrenched these ideas are in who you are and what you believe. So here we go. Question 1. I want to fill a feeling of emptiness in myself with another person. I want to fill a feeling of emptiness in myself with another person. Question 2. I have strong expectations of what it should feel like when I am in love. Question 3. I tell myself I'm ready to fall in love. Question 4. I find myself feeling instantly intimacy as if I immediately know my lover. Question 5. My emotions are so intense when we are together, I don't see who they really are. Question 6. We were destined to be together. Question 7. I prefer not wanting to know everything about the other person because it might upset my feelings. Question 8. They're the most wonderful person I have ever met. Number 9. I experience obsessive daydreams about a distant love object. 10. I feel in love with celebrities or other high-status persons. 11. I want someone to love me even though I don't want to love them. 12. I intensely examine their behavior for signs that they love me. 13. I keep a love going even though I receive only crumbs. 14. I spend hours pining for my secret love. 15. The less response I get, the more obsessive I become. 16. Even when things go badly, I look for signs of love. 17. I wonder if I love them more than they love me. 18. I often ask if they love or appreciate me. 19. I'm not sure what to make of it when they say they love me and I want more. 20. I create little tests to gauge my loved one's emotional involvement. 21. My loved one's emotional response is the focus of my attention. 22. I resist getting in touch because I want them to initiate. 23. I worry that my behavior or appearance will turn them off. 24. I run the encounter through my mind before we meet, rehearsing what I'll do. 25. I hide parts of myself in case they are off-putting. 26. I can only love one person at a time. New relationships end old ones. 27. We belong to each other. 28. Falling in love will be amazing. 29. Their appearance overwhelms me. 30. Sometimes we keep quiet because we might say something that breaks the spell. 31. My friends wonder what I see in my lover. 32. I reach out for love, but it's not there. 33. I've found my other half. 34. We always stick together for security. 35. I know who my ideal lover will be. 36. I had loving feelings about them before I found them. 37. I'm worried my lover won't live up to my expectations. 38. Being in love feels strange or artificial. 39. Our future get-together will be perfect. 40. I'm ready and just waiting for them to arrive. 41. I love to feel in love, so it becomes a game. 42. I think about what I should do or say to get what I want from them. 43. I play hard to get to create more intense feelings. 44. I filter out negatives so my experience fits my preconceived ideas. 45. Romantic songs or films prepare me for a romantic experience. 46. I want to replay the feelings of love I see others have had. 47. I stage manage the drama of my love life. 48. I feel euphoric when I'm with them and melt away. 49. Being in love gets me out of boring reality. 50. I feel like I lose control when I'm in love. 51. Love is magical. 52. The emotional intensity surprises me. 53. Getting intense feelings now is more important than the future. 54. The feelings are so powerful, I feel exhausted. 55. I almost worship them. 56. Their faults or flaws could be seen in a positive light. 57. I feel rotten when we have little misunderstandings. 58. Their responses cause powerful mood swings like I'm being controlled. 59. I can't get on with normal life when I'm in love. 60. I want to spend every moment with them. 61. I can't stop thinking about them. 62. I keep wondering what will happen next and where we are going. 63. Every day I contemplate what their feelings are for me. 64. I want to connect everything I do with my beloved. 65. If they forget to call me, they have forgotten me. 66. My mind is consumed by overwhelming passion. 67. Love feels like an irresistible force pulling us together. 68. Falling in love flows without any conscious effort. 69. Being in love is one of life's highest goals. 70. Nothing else matters when I'm in love. 71. I'll sacrifice more than anything else to love. 72. Feeling in love is more important than sex. 73. I feel empty when we are apart. 74. My emotional attachment means that I ignore negative experiences with them. 75. I could feel suicidal if we split up. 76. I'd kill someone if they stood in the way of my romantic dream. 77. If I can't have them, nobody else will. 78. I keep coming back for the makeup, even though we have horrible disagreements. 79. Their bad treatment of me means they love me. 80. Competition from rivals intensifies my feelings of love. 81. At the end of the relationship, I hold on to the smallest glimmer of hope. 82. The intensity of my feelings subsided when a commitment was made. 83. I think of splitting up when the honeymoon period is over. 84. My love affairs don't usually last much more than a couple of years. 85. I find it impossible to stay friends after a split up. 86. My feelings swing between loving and hateful towards the end of a romance. 87. After a split up, I exaggerate all the faults or flaws I previously ignored. 88. Falling in love is a natural phenomena. It should be spontaneous. 89. I resist the suggestion that romance is culturally conditioned. 90. I'll know I'm in love when it happens. 91. Love should be mysterious, so don't analyze it. 92. Doubting my love could threaten my emotional well-being. 93. I don't want to think too deeply about love in case I lose the ability to love. And 94. I'd prefer to be in love even if it's delusional. So, if you'd like to now add up the number of those points that you identified with to come up with a total, and just take a look at the next slide, which helps to interpret the data. So, if you scored greater than 76 or thereabouts, you are in a delusional state and highly likely to have chaotic and painful relationships. And if you scored between 51 and 75, you are in the lovesick category, and you're still quite likely to struggle in relationships, but you may be able to function and keep them going, but you'll find them difficult. And then 26 to 50, you're doing quite well. You've perhaps recovered from romantic experiences and kind of started to doubt them, or perhaps you were just immune to the idea in the first place. And then if you scored 25 or less, you're probably ready to move on and experience authentic love. So in the next section, we're going to move on to part 2, which will be exploring the ideas of authentic loving. So we're just going to take a break for a minute now, and I'll be back in a moment. So let's move on and start to think about authentic loving relationships. And this is a quote from James Leonard Park. Authenticity means creating our own comprehensive life meanings, our authentic projects of being. When we recenter and reintegrate our lives around our freely chosen purposes, we become more focused, unified, and decisive. We gain greater autonomy and increase our capacity to resist and transcend enculturation. Now, of course, enculturation is this process by which our minds become imprinted with scripts or memes, such as romantic love. So how do we start this process of becoming more authentic? Well, what we do is we move from the dependent to the authentic. So if you think about relationships in terms of meeting mutual needs and neediness, the move to the authentic is about really about focusing on your own experience. And you'll be looking really to find your purpose in life, more generally, and specifically your purpose in having romantic relationships or loving relationships with people. The next step is to create your life project. So once you've discovered or uncovered your purpose or mission in life, you need to turn that into a practical project. And then, of course, you have to actually live the life project on a daily basis. And there's also certain steps you can take to becoming more self-actualizing. But that's basically the outline. So what's going to stop us from becoming more authentic individuals? Well, typically we'll have fears and doubts about moving into being more independent and expressing more of ourselves. We may have certain expectations or beliefs that we need to overcome. And there can also be obsessions and dislikes. This can keep us locked into our all of these things can keep us locked into our current sets of habits and behaviors. And Stefan Molyneux also says the elimination of need is foundational to intimacy. If you think, for example, I think he gives the example of a drug addict and his dealer or supplier. They really can't have an intimate relationship because their relationship is just based on a need, one for the supply of the drugs and the other for supply of money by selling drugs. So the whole relationship really is just about this topic of neediness. And of course, you can see this in relationships between the gold digger and the sugar daddy. It's the same thing. And when relationships are based on that kind of dynamic of meeting needs, rather than a sort of mutually shared state of being in the authentic self, we just have a dependency, and there isn't really anything real about that relationship. It's just a business transaction. Beyond that, there's not really any space for love. So you need to find your purpose and be your own love champion. And within relationships, you need to be asking questions like, what causes your anxiety or ease? Is there anything about yourself you really like or dislike? Is there anything about others you really like or dislike? And this sort of big existential question, what do you want to do before you die? I mean, this can be a very useful question to ask to get yourself aligned with your authentic self. It sort of triggers us into our more primitive brain, which helps to push aside the programming conditioning and really gets us to, well, what is it I want to do with this life of mine? And I wanted to talk a bit about my experiences at this point. I got into a relationship with my current girlfriend about 7 years ago, and we've had a very satisfying and deep relationship. There's not really been a lot of romance in it at all. We started by having quite a business-like arrangement where we sat down and spoke about what our expectations were and what we wanted to get out of our relationship. And we didn't quite go as far as signing a contract, but we really got very clear about what the sort of the terms and conditions of the situation was. For example, I asked for there to be no sarcasm in the relationship, no name calling. And things like this can really help to create strong and clear boundaries around the relationship, and help to keep everyone aligned towards meeting the objectives of having a satisfying and supportive experience with each other. And interesting enough, it was a sharing of one of these processes on Facebook that triggered somebody to respond to me saying, well, hey, romance shouldn't be like that. It should just be spontaneous and natural. And, you don't need to analyze or talk about it. And of course, this is just quite bizarre. I mean, given the consequences of relationships gone wrong, the heartbreak, the killings, the bitterness and hate, you would think that people want to really take a great deal of care in the management and starting of their personal relationships. So, let's suppose that you've done the work to find your purpose or your mission in life, and your purpose or mission in being in loving relationships. Next, you need to define your relationship project. What actions support your purpose or mission? What resources do you need to take action? How do you get these resources? And there could be something else that you need to help you support this project and get it going. For example, you might want somebody to hold you accountable, because it can be challenging to hold ourselves accountable in these situations. So perhaps you have a friend or a coach or support like myself. And also there's deeper psychological questions like, can I accept success? And really this is about people stop looking for the one and start being the one. That's the objective of your relationship project. And I want to talk a bit about bad relationship experiences here. Before I had my current love relationship, I had a particularly bad experience, one with substantial abuse. And I also had some children in that relationship, and they experienced and received abuse. So some pretty dire consequences. And I had an idea from the beginning that the relationship wasn't going to be good. It was pretty clear that it was going to be very challenging and very difficult. And I did voice this to my ex. But I didn't really hold myself accountable. I didn't get any support. And there was a part of me, I think, because of my family history, that wasn't really ready to embrace and go for success. So I was prepared to accept less than what I really wanted. And these are all really dangerous conditions to be in. We really do need help when we've had this enculturation around romance. We need help to have good relationships, and we need to work on a lot of our childhood conditioning. And we can be reluctant to do the steps necessary to be successful. We have these resistances. And it's hardly news. The company we keep is very important in terms of having a successful relationship and life in general. If you're living with fools around you, then the chances are that you're going to be copying their behaviours, or you're going to be adversely affected by their behaviours. And also, when we find good people, we want to keep those people in our company, learn from them, and share our lives with them. And I think there's something in there about self-esteem as well, about making choices that help ourselves. So we also have a need to put this project into action each day. It's no good having your sort of far-sighted vision of where you want to be and getting clear about your project, but then just doing a minimal amount of work on it. Perhaps just going to one workshop a year, or only doing superficial work, reading magazine articles or whatever, rather than doing something deep and meaningful each day that really means that you're implementing your love project. Of course, your goals and expectations, they need to be realistic, so that you can actually do something on a daily basis. You actually have to go and get the resources. So that's an actionable item. If you need to do something in the day to enhance your loving experience, for example, one of the things I do in the relationship is show appreciation for my partner, and I need to be in a position to give appreciation as well. So I need to look after myself and make sure that I'm having enough nurturing experiences. Otherwise I won't feel like appreciating my partner. And you have to, of course, take the action. And again, of course, we need accountability there, and that's where a partner can come in handy. You can have your lover help to keep you accountable. But really, it's something you need to by and large manage on your own. I'm not into this. My partner needs to be my rock stuff. That's a dependency. And check in with yourself every day, and make sure that you're making the differences that count to get you to go where you want to go. And don't let these projects be a sort of a dead end. Reevaluate and redefine. Your love project can be an evolving and unfolding process of growth. So, what's self-actualization? Well, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one. This is from Abraham Maslow. It refers to the desire for self-fulfillment, mainly to the tendency for him to become actualized in what he is potentially. This tendency might be phrased as the desire to become more and more what one is, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. So Maslow had this idea of the individual having these sort of untapped potentials, which are just their own, so that we're not just going to spend our lives replaying the social constructs that have been imprinted in our minds during childhood. We have our own passions, our own projects, and we need to unlock those and experience and express those in order to be happy. And perhaps not everyone has to be self-actualized. Perhaps some people are just happy having very mundane lives and just playing out the scripts that have been implanted during their childhood, their enculturation. But really, I don't know. I don't think I believe that everyone or a particularly large number of people are like that. I think we all have something deep in our psyche that we want to be or do, and that I think it's important for everyone, just my opinion, to find that stuff and express it. Maslow, of course, had this hierarchy. It's like a triangle. It's sometimes depicted as a triangle with self-actualization at the top. And critics have pointed out that some people are actually prepared to forgo the basics in life, like food and shelter. They'll economize on those in order to express their sort of purpose, or their higher self. And I think I agree with that as well. It's important to have balance in life and to make sure all the parts of you are expressed. So, can we self-actualize relationships? Because Maslow really was about personal development, and I think it's applicable. A relationship between people has a life of its own, so it's like a third person. It has needs, it has potentials and capabilities. And relationships can also have peaks of transcendence, where your experience sort of moves you on and up to a higher level of expression of yourself and experience in life. And we can also intentionally create a supportive container for this process. As I spoke before, from my personal experience with my current partner, we can have objectives, we can have boundaries, we can define the resources and the actions we need to have our relationship be in this sort of self-actualizing paradigm. So that's it for now. If you have any questions or want to discuss this material more, please do so. I'll be providing this program and making available. You can email me at the email address john@newlivingparadigms.com. I hope you enjoyed everything, and I hope you find it all beneficial and helps you to have a more successful love life.